Hi there, welcome to my Python tutorial series, Aiogram tutorial series, as you might have already noticed. And in this video, I'm about to cover the proper project structure, as I've already promised you in my previous video, how to properly organize your project structure, and I'm planning to do it right over in this video. So if you ever found yourself stumbled while organizing properly your project structure, organizing your structure of your code, how to properly connect all the components, handlers, where to define entry point function, and how to connect it to the database, how to properly define your handlers. Everything will be in this video, except database connection, of course, because database connection will be considered a little bit later in the next videos. But in this video, I'm gonna show you how to create the basis for organization of your Telegram bot. So this is pretty basic, but I guess this is necessity. This is something you need to know about. This is something you need to be aware about if you want to be proficient in this field. So firstly, we have to create our new folder. This could be anything you want, but in my case, I'm planning to create something like lesson 3, because lesson 3, this is exactly what is lesson about. It's just the number of our lesson. Alright, so in this project structure, lesson 3, I'm going to leave the link in the description section below so you can find this project structure easily. You can find it, you can manipulate it, you can create new folders, you can clone the GitHub repository locally to your computer and do whatever you want. Add something, so manipulate a handlers, you can use it for your own projects. So yeah, I guess this is pretty common project structure, but still few people knows about it, and sometimes people take all the files, all the handlers, components, filters, middlewares in the same single file, and this is pretty awful because you make your code very complex, unwieldy, cumbersome, very hard to maintain. This is really inflexible code that you don't have to do this. You just need to organize your code efficiently. You have to do it maintainable, and you have to place as less code as possible. You have to keep your code neat. You have to keep it simple as much as possible. You don't have to overwhelm your code with lots of unnecessary stuff. You have to logically divide your components and properly segregate them, properly organize your project. So the first thing I'm going to create in this folder, this is going to be a new folder. This folder is going to be called like bot. Let's change the directory and navigate here, lesson 3. Now I'm inside of lesson 3. Wait a minute, I forgot to activate our virtual environment. As I have already mentioned in my previous video episodes, we have to type source, and after this we have to type here bin, activate. Then I'm going to change my directory in here. I'm planning to create, I already have a project structure from my previous applications I've already developed, so I would just copy some of the details of my previous projects. So yeah, in this case I'm planning to initially, let's create the entry point our Telegram bot. This entry point will be directly inside lesson 3 folder. In your case, this could be something like bot folder, or just, you can call it as you wish. You can just give it a name for your project. For example, if you are working with OCR bot for object recognition or whatever you want, you can just give arbitrary name. It depends on your needs, it depends on your requirements or expectations for the project. So I just give the name lesson 3, and in this lesson 3 folder, you basically need to create inner folder, nested folder. This nested folder is called bot folder. Bot folder, this is like some kind of box that encases and encapsulates all the source code that's related to your Telegram bot, that consists of business logic that implements exactly the logic solutions that you are going to implement in your bot. So this is going to be handlers, processors, middlewares. We're going to talk about it later in the next episodes. That's not important for us now, but crucially is that we have to create bot folder and we have to create entry point. And our entry point is something that initiates the work of our bot. That's something that starts our bot, something that, launches the process of our bot, the HTTP request to our Telegram API. That's something that, this is like a brain of our bot, right? So this is like API to our bot. This is like the main door to our program, something that launches, this engine of our program. This is the brain of our program. So we have to create this brain. We have to define the function that will start our polling process, that will start our event loop, will start all our processors. So this is like engine of vehicle, this is like a main file that will start our program and start polling, of course, right? So because we're basically working within the context of asynchronous paradigm. So in this case, I'm planning to create a new file that's called main.py, and this main.py, as I've already mentioned, this entry point to our program. You can just basically create it here using your visual interface, graphical interface, like create a new file. But I personally prefer working with bash and command line interface, but it's your call. I'm planning basically to do everything the same, exactly the same as my previous video tutorial, as I've already did it on numerous occasions. Import a Asyncio library that's responsible for our asynchronous execution of our program. I've already told you about it. You can also import here a logging module, but I'm not talking about it during this episode, so I guess I'm going to talk about it a few episodes later, but not now. And I'm planning to create here the basic idiom if name equals main. That means our program is being invoked and being launched directly inside your command line interface. This is basically when you tell your program work independently without any import. So this is part of your program will be executed only if and only if your program is not being imported, if your module is being executed directly inside your command line interface, right? So this is pretty cool because it will let us to create different reloaders, tests, or it's also thread safe. It's also more suitable for, entry points and for our main file. So this is a common pattern that's being used in the context of Python. It's not only about Telegram bots. It's also being used in different Python applications, from Django until Flask API and everything, anywhere else. In this case, I'm just planning to invoke the method that's called run in our Asyncio module. This is synchronous method that will start our main function, and this is going to be our coroutine object. Coroutine object, this is like a generator object, so you have to be familiar with basic stuff from Python. That's a piece of cake. I guess this is like a generator object, something like, creates the data on fly. I guess you are already familiar with this, but if you are not familiar with generators, you can read the documentation, but it's not crucially important for this current tutorial. So the next thing I'm planning to implement here is basically our main entry point function. It should be a synchronous function, and we're planning to specify here, pass through here our boat instance. Basically, this is the representation of our boat. Our main function returns nothing, and we have to have here the documentation of our code, the main function, which will execute event loop, and start polling. So we can also create here configurations and everything, but I'm not planning to talk about it in this video. I'll tell about it later. So here we should create dispatcher object, and of course we have to import this dispatcher object. So in advance, let's import this dispatcher object. In order to import this dispatcher object, we have to import that from our Aiogram library. We have to import boat, and we have to import dispatcher. Also, I'm planning to create in our lesson 3 the module that is called boat instance. This is for reusable boat instance we're going to use across our different modules. So we're not creating our boat instance inside our main file, because we can use this boat instance not only in our main file, but we'll probably use it across our different modules and files among all our program. We're going to use this in source code. We're going to use it in handlers or anything else to invoke different methods we're going to need. So in this case, I'm going to create a boat instance. So from Aiogram library, I'm planning to import the boat instance, and let me see, I don't want to miss anything. So in this case, I'm also importing types module, and I guess I'll just create here boat instance, and we have to specify here the token. And for this reason, I'm planning to copy this file and paste it here, just in our lesson 3. This is my token API. Again, token API, this is like a key to your Telegram API to authorize and get all the requests that comes to your Telegram. So here I'm just planning to import from our token API. From token API, I'm planning to import our token API. And in this case, I'm going to specify here the constant token API in parse mode is being specified like HTML, because in my previous lesson, I've already told you that we're going to use Markdown and HTML markups for, formatting the get text, adding styles, and anything you want. So for this reason, I specify here the parse mode is equal HTML. So once we've created this Telegram boat instance, we can directly import it in our main.py. to do this, we just need to, use boat instance, call boat instance, and just import from here our boat instance. All right, so after this, in our dispatcher object, we typically need to pass here our boat instance, like our boat instance. And I guess we don't have to pass through here boat object. This is pointless. And we also can specify here the storage, but the storage is the subject for the next videos. In this video, I'm not planning to talk about this. I guess that's pretty much it, because I don't want to overcomplicate this video tutorial. I just want to, capture the essence. Basically, for the reason we don't use boat instance here, boat class here, I'm planning to remove this import, and I'm going to create a new function. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that this function is absolutely synchronous. This is like register routers function, but this function typically takes the dispatcher object as an argument. It returns nothing, and this function is basically needs to be used for register your routers. The router. What is that? What do we mean by router? What do we mean by router? The router object is basically something like a mini dispatcher. Your dispatcher object is like the processor that processes all the requests from Telegram API and, redirect this request to the specific handler. It takes the request and then it invoke the corresponding handler, takes your request object message or body of this request object that gets from Telegram API, and then process this object and, vector this object directly inside your handler. It passes it through directly inside your handler, and your handler is then processed and handles this request or response. You can think about it like a response, because you get the response from Telegram API, because this Telegram API, this is like a server, and your Telegram API and your Telegram bot is like a client. So where did I stop? I stopped at a moment that I was talking about the router object. The router object is mini dispatcher, so you can basically divide your program into different parts, into smaller parts, and each of these parts is represented by router. So router is like a mini dispatcher. One router can be responsible for specific handlers, modules, or a bunch of modules. So yeah, this is pretty convenient if you need to implement segregation of concerns and more modular code with, improved and enhanced processing time, because your requests are being processed much easier and much quicker now. So this is like optimization, performance optimization. This is very convenient in terms of coding and organizing modular code. So yeah, this is just best practice in bot development. This function is just for register routers. Right, after this, I'm planning to invoke already built-in method that's called include router, and we just need to pass through here our router will be something like user router. And you might be wondering what user router is. What do you mean by user router? This is pretty interesting because I didn't create this user router yet. And our user router is basically the mini dispatcher object. I didn't create it yet. So we have to create a new folder inside our bot folder. This is going to be, like handlers. We're going to place our handlers. And let me just open our bot folder here. We have here handlers, and we also can create here other folders, like for example, we can create here services, we can create here utils. So it just directly depends on your project requirements. I'm planning to create here a new file that's called init.py. Init.py is necessary to consider your folder as a Python package, as a Python module, to initialize your folder as a Python package. So this can be extremely useful and convenient for import purposes, for creating package API, for working with imports, exports. And I guess the more you delve into these details in practical experience, the more you dive into the intricacies, the more you gain practical experience, the better understanding you have, the simpler and more obvious these things become to you. So I think that's a matter of time. If you don't understand something right now, it doesn't mean you will not understand it later. I'm just planning to create here a new folder. It's called, for example, services. It's just for, this is just for example. You can create something like middlewares, keyboards, or anything. This is the subject for our later episodes. In this episode, I'm not going to tell about this. I don't want to overcomplicate my video tutorial. It's already less about 25 minutes, and that's pretty long. I will cut this video tutorial a little bit. I will mount this, but still, this is pretty long, yes. So The next thing I'm planning to do here is open my handlers folder. In this our handlers folder, it's essential to create something like, you can create different folders here. You can create user that's directly dedicated for user handlers. You can create another folders that focus on different other handlers. You can organize your project more modular, and you can divide it into more components if you want. If you don't want it, or if your project doesn't require it, you don't have to do this. You don't have to overcomplicate things, because sometimes it's much better to keep everything simple. So in our case, I'm just planning to create here initialize.py. This is another one module for initialize our package, and I'm planning to create here a user handlers. This is basically our module for defining the user handlers. And in this user handlers file, I can create something like, like basic handlers. For example, I can create here asynchronous def comment start handler, and this comment start handler will process the start comment, and you have to import this from our Aiogram filters. We have here, you can see we have here comment probably, or no, let's directly import from our filters like comment filter. Yeah, this is the class that will let us process different comments. In our previous video, we created our decorator object from our dispatcher class. We just created dispatcher and message handler, something like this. This case, I'm planning to create a router object. This is like our minimalistic dispatcher instance, right? So yeah, let's create it. This is basically the instance of our router class, and we have to import this router class from our Aiogram library. Directly from our Aiogram library, we're going to import our router class, right? And here I'm planning to create a user router wrapper function or decorator. Let's call it message. That's it. Oh my god, I'm sorry. That was a real mistake because I had to pass it through right over here. I didn't notice that. Here we just need to pass through our message object. That's the instance of our types. We can import this module from our Aiogram library, and here we just pass through a class, our message. This is basically for the convenience. It's not necessary. This is just a typing like in TypeScript or anything else. If you are familiar with TypeScript, if you are not, forget about it. So we don't return anything. We just use here a wait keyword. And because of our synchronous paradigm, and here I'm planning to use cancer. This is going to be a pretty basic example, but if you want, you can specify here some kind of HTML text, for example, B, like, and close tag. And here you can write something like hello world, exclamation mark. You can also specify here any documentation for your function. For example, processes the start command, like this one, start command. What am I doing it for? I'm planning to show it in a couple of seconds. Process the start command. If you do something like this, if you just start typing comment start, your Visual Studio Code will drop a hint like process the start command, and you can see it formats the code. So if you put here your, I don't remember how it's called, tilde, or, just quotation marks, it will process this string and format it correspondingly. So you can see the beautiful message. This is pretty cool because you can just start typing the function command, function, method, and you can see all the description that's related to a specific function. You can see the arguments you are going to pass there, the types of the objects you are planning to return this function or anything like that. So I'm not planning to do anything else here. This is pretty much it. In our main.py, I'm planning to import this user router. And here we have several approaches. This is the basic approach, the most simpler approach. This is when you just import your, your router from both handlers, user handlers. You can import from your user router. The next approach, I'm going to demonstrate you. The next approach is more convenient and more, simpler and more neat, more concise approach. I'm going to demonstrate it in the next episodes, not in this one, because I don't want to make this tutorial too long. But in this specific tutorial, just import it from our user router, user handlers. So that's it. I guess we did everything we needed here. So the only thing we have to do here is just use start pulling. And because of this, our asynchronous method, I'm planning to using here a wait keyword. As far as I know, we don't have to specify here both, because we already passed it through here in the dispatcher object, but we can give this a shot and take a look what we get. Let's give this a try. Python. Let me change the directory as Python main.py. Nice, Python.3 main.py. I just hope everything will work. No, oops, Python.py. We'll see. Okay, at least one boat instance is required to start polling. That means it requires our boat object. That means we don't have to specify here boat instance. Well, that's not necessary because there is a little difference. There is a subtle difference between Aiogram the version of 2 and Aiogram the version of 3. And sometimes I'm getting confused about this because in Aiogram the second version we had to do it differently. So let's just try it again. Yeah, everything works fine. And now I'm planning to open my Telegram boat and see what we have right now. All right, so this is our boat from our previous installation. Let's try the start command. We don't see any result. This is because we didn't call the function register routers. That was my bad. So yeah, we've specified the function register routers, but we didn't, surprisingly as it may seem, we didn't call this function exactly here. Yeah, this is synchronous function, but we just have to, invoke it right over here. And here I'm planning to restart our boat. Okay, everything goes well for now. And I'm trying this again. And lo and behold, everything works great. So you can see the hello world message. And as you can see, it's being formatted. So we can see the forward word bold. So yeah, nice. Pretty cool, isn't it? That was pretty basic example of your project structure and how you can duly organize it, following best practices and, segregation of concerns and modular approach in organizing your boat development workflow. So yeah, this is pretty cool. And in the next videos, I'm planning to consider different stuff, different aspects of boat development. So you can find this project structure in the description section below. So I'm just gonna leave the link to this GitHub repository, so you can easily find it, clone to your own local environment, manipulate it, test it. Yeah, just get your hands a little bit dirty. That's pretty much it for this tutorial. And I think you find this tutorial useful. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you watching these videos. This is super great to hear the feedback from you. So thank you very much for watching this video. See you at the next tutorial.